Good morning, second graders. I hope you are well this morning and have enjoyed the stories this week. We have spent the whole week talking about different causes and effects of things that happen in our world. And today, I'm going to finish up the week with another Earth Day book about recycling. It's called Recycles. The different thing about this book is it's broken up into 3 different sections, boys and girls. And your response sheet today, you are going to be required to write a cause and effect for each section of the book. Let me show you quick before I start reading. It does not have a table of contents, but we're talking about different cycles and recycling today. There's one that's called the soil circle. There is another section that is the water cycle. And I think we talked about that one a little bit in school. And then the last one is the hungry compost pile. So what you're going to do on your response sheet today and submit is write a cause and effect for each one of those different sections of the book. And so I want you to listen real carefully. Your purpose is to find a cause and effect. And I think some of you got a little tripped up yesterday when, or 2 days ago, sorry, when you had to tell why things are important. And when there are causes, when something happens and then there's an effect from that, there's usually an important reason why. So, for example, with that polar bear book, we talk a lot in the world about global warming. And so the earth is getting warmer. Then the ice is melting, which is making it difficult for the polar bears to find food. And the effect of that might be that polar bears are going to become extinct. And that's important because what would our world be like without polar bears? And would it be possible that we would have a world without polar bears? So that why was it important part was just a way to make you think. You weren't going to find the answer in the book, and I know I had some questions about that, and keep those questions coming. I just love them. Okay? So, it's the end of the week. Get yourself settled. Find a comfy spot. We're going to be talking about different cycles. And remember, a cycle is something that continues on and on and on. And so, settled, find a comfy place, and I'm going to start. Are you ready? Everything on earth is always changing. Sometimes these changes repeat over and over again, called cycles. And do you wonder if there's a connection with that between a bicycle and how your tires always go round and around and around? I wonder. The soil circle. A little seedling sprouts in the shade of bigger trees. Its tiny roots reach down into the ground for nutrients and water, which help it grow. At first, the seedling is no taller than a turtle. Look at this, guys. This is a cute little turtle. But each year it grows higher and higher until one day, 100 years later, it is a grand old tree. And it would be like this. So look at this. It starts here, and then it ends as this big tree. That would be the cycle. And then as the seeds fall, we would get another one. Children swing from its limbs, build bird nests on its branches, and caterpillars dine on its delicious leaves. Every autumn, the tree drops acorns, which are eaten by the jays, squirrels, and deer. After many, many more years, the tree becomes old and weak. Beetles lay their eggs under the bark. The young grubs munch on the living tree. Woodpeckers peck into the tree to find and eat the grubs. They make nest holes in the rotting trunk to raise their babies safely. The old tree becomes weaker still, and soon mushrooms sprout from its trunk. The mushrooms are part of a fungus that eats the trunk and digests the mighty roots. So one tree can be home and food for many. One day during a wild and furious storm, the old tree sways in the wind and then crashes to the ground. Before long, a city of tiny creatures appears inside the skeleton-like remains of the trees. Termites, beetles, and sawflies make tunnels as they feast on the wood. Slowly over the years, the bugs and the fungi take part of the tree. It becomes a mound of rotten wood that adds new richness to the soil. The nutrients from the old tree can now help the other trees grow. So even as it's fallen and dead, it will still, they will still feed other creatures. One day a seedling sprouts on an old tree's grave. Its tiny roots reach into the ground for water and nutrients. And soon it grows tall from the rich soil, water, and sunshine. One day it will be a grand old tree that will then die and add new riches to the soil. One day it will complete that soil cycle. And these are called decomposition facts. Moisture and warm temperatures make a tree decay faster. Soil is made up of a combination of minerals, dead plants, and dead animals. Millions of insects can live inside a dead tree. Okay, so we are done with that section, and I want you to think of a cause, an effect for that section, and maybe you even want to stop this recording and write that down, because you're going to need that thought and those ideas when you go to complete your response for today. So go ahead and stop if you want, and then come on back. Okay, good. You ready? We're going to read about the water cycle now. Out of the sky falls a little drop of water. It lands on a leaf and drips to the ground. It joins other drops, and together they trickle into a stream. Gurgling and splashing, they glide over pebbles and rocks. Like a silver snake, the stream slides to the sea. The drop is now a tiny part of the big, salty ocean. So one little droplet can fall from the sky, go to a river, and end up part of the vast ocean. Each day, water drops evaporate and disappear into the air as they change into water vapor. One day, the sun's rays heat up a drop until it changes to vapor. The little drop floats into the fluffy clouds where it will join more droplets. And this is where it forms our clouds. When the droplets of vapor became chilled by the cold air, they become falling as raindrops. This time, the water drop falls into the dirty puddle on a school playground. That very afternoon, the heat of the sun changes the drop to vapor, and once again it floats up into the sky to join the cloud. So it's constantly changing and moving in one big cycle. Later it falls again as snow high in the mountains and doesn't flow back to the ocean until next spring. Year after year, the drop cycles from earth to air, from dirty water to clean vapor. Every day, water drops ride the never-ending water cycle. And here are some water facts. Most of the water on Earth is found in the oceans, and it is salty. The average size tree can release 100 quarts, 95 liters of water a day through its leaves. Did you know that? Most of the water on Earth has been around for billions of years. That's a big number, a billion, and this is billions. Okay, stop and think about that water cycle. What's a cause? What's an effect? And again, stop and think and ask yourself, why do you think that water cycle is so important to us on Earth? Okay? Go ahead and stop if you need to. Jot yourself some notes if you need to, and then come on back. Okay. Good job. Last part today is the hungry compost pile. Do you know what a compost pile is? Some people may have a compost pile in their backyard, and a compost pile is a way to use your food scraps and then use that for fertilizer for your gardens or into your flower beds. It's supposed to be really healthy. Mrs. Boffman doesn't have one at my house. I don't really have enough room for one. But I do know some people that do. Nature recycles water and soil. You can recycle too. You can take used cans, papers, plastic to a recycling center where they can be processed to make new products for people to use. And recycle once more. You can even recycle some of your kitchen and yard waste. I wonder what they're thinking of. And I wonder why this would be important. Max and Julia have a big pile in their backyard where they put banana peels, apple cores, eggshells, and bread crusts, leftover rice, old leaves, grass clippings, and other stuff that will turn to soil. It's called a compost pile. The compost is alive with worms, roly-polies, and other little creatures. Millions of bacteria, which are tiny creatures too small to see, live in the compost and quietly dine on the leftovers from the kitchen and the garden. So the bacteria lives inside that pile and it helps break it down, and it just eats away at different things. We can't see it, but it's always helping. Max and Julia add dry leaves to keep the compost pile from getting smelly. They add water to keep it from getting dry, so it needs to be a little bit damp. As the critters munch the stuff in the pile, they create a rich fertilizer called compost. It's like rich humus from the forest floor. Week after week, Max and Julia feed the pile, and within a couple of months, they have compost to feed their garden. The compost helps the cucumbers, peas, and watermelons to grow healthy. So you add this to your soil, and then the plants that are growing take those nutrients and they grow larger. And they're more healthy. After Julia and Max eat the cucumbers, peas, and watermelons, they feed the peels, pods, and rinds back to the compost pile. Gardens feed compost, and compost feed gardens. That's another cycle. And I like that sentence right there. It says, the gardens feed the compost, and then the compost feeds the gardens. Compost tips. Don't put meat or bones in the compost. They will attract animals, and you won't want those in your yard. Keep the compost moist but not soggy. And start a compost pile by mixing kitchen waste, dry leaves, and a little bit of garden soil. And boys and girls, this does have to happen outside. You wouldn't want to start this in your house because you're taking old garbage and you're trying to help it break down a little bit. So we wouldn't want that in our homes. The end. What I want you to do, stop and think about this last ton. What are some of the effects? What are the causes? How can a compost pile help us? What are the effects of that? Go ahead, jot yourself some notes, or as you stop the recording today, you're going to fill out a response sheet. My brain went blank for a minute. You're going to fill out a response sheet, and you're going to talk about each section of the book. Remember that. So you might want to go back in and help yourself. You can listen to it again if you want. You've done some great work this week. Keep it up. I will see you again on Monday. Hope you have a great weekend. Have some fun at home. Be kind to mom and dad. Be helpful. And I will see you back here on Monday. Remember, I miss you. I love you. And have a great weekend. Bye-bye.